So welcome to this episode of Honest to God, where we're going to be talking about what happens when your husband has a vasectomy and then you end up unexpectedly with 2 more children. I'm going to be joined by the lovely Claire Morton. Hi, Claire.
Hi.
Who's going to be helping me tell and explain this story about kinship foster care and how it's completely changed my life over the last couple of years.
So, your husband had a vasectomy, Gemma.
Yep.
And then another 2 kids came along.
Which sounds like a headline you'd see in Take a Break magazine.
It really does.
Yes.
So I think we need to stay with the Take a Break theme and go into this one.
I don't know why I'm laughing because it's the most traumatic thing I've ever been through. So yeah.
Yeah, I have obviously, as a friend, been dipping in and out with this with you over the last few years, and I find it fascinating how you've navigated your life through what you're going to tell us now. And I think it'll be a really insightful and inspiring, as well as obviously traumatic journey that you're going to take us on, to just really see what you've been up to and the reality of what this subject is all about. But it will have a nice ending.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me, start from the beginning.
Well, I think it started with Sean going for the snip.
Yeah.
Which was something, I forced upon him, I'll be honest.
You did?
I did. I forced it on him.
Because you didn't want any more kids?
Well, it was him. I
didn't.
did. I wanted more children and
Yeah.
he didn't. He was adamant he didn't want more kids. So we had, at the time, Blake, who, as I said in our first episode back into this season of Honest to God, Blake had a terrible leg break and subsequent 2 surgeries and a lot of recovery. And had got back on his bike and things were going great. And regardless, I know a lot of people don't believe in private school, but we had 1 kid. We weren't happy with his primary school at the time, and we decided, right, we're going to go and put him in a local primary
I just thought
school.
you were a snob.
Not at all.
But I get it. No, you wanted him to have a good education.
The primary school he was in, he was smart and he kept getting into trouble for doing all of his work early. And he ended up at the back of the class on his own for months on end, and I didn't know. And then when we found out, I was really upset that the school hadn't involved us in this and tried to help him with his behaviour. And it all happened as it does with us a lot, very quickly. Blake went to look at this new school on the Thursday, and he was there full time by the following Tuesday. And so, we've got 1 kid, both got decent jobs. He's in private school. He does his motocross. Life's good. And then, my business is going great. And that's part of the story is kind of like why this was so hard. And then all of a sudden, unexpectedly in December 2022, my niece, who was 5 at the time, was legally removed from the care of her parents. I think it's called a Regulation 24, like they've got 24 hours to do it. To do it. So it was funny. It was one of those funny moments where our family members were struggling to get her to school. So my husband was called and said, look, is there any chance you can take her to school in the morning? And he was on an early shift. So I heard this conversation, said, look, I can. I'd never done it before, but yeah, I can. I'll take her to school. So I'll pick her up in the morning and I'll take her to school, no problem. Anyway, so I did that and thought, they don't know who I am. So I'm an adult who's got my very tiny little 5-year-old niece, because she's a little dot, and I'm taking her to school, and I realise I'm just dropping her off. There's, obviously, because of the circumstances, a child isn't removed for no reason. So school are aware of reasons. School are heavily involved in this because actually they're the ones who've raised concerns for a long period of time. So I drop her off at school and then I think, do you know what? I better go and introduce myself. So I walked into reception and said, oh, hi. I realised this might be a safeguarding issue. So I just wanted to let you know who I am and that I'm her auntie.
Yeah.
And the woman on reception was like, excuse me, really? We didn't know there was any family. I was like, yeah, we see her every weekend. Wow. We've just been on holiday with her. It's like, right, we didn't realise there was any family. Now, unbeknown to me, in reception at that time, as part of this care order process, are social workers, safeguarding leads, medical professionals,
Yeah.
and she's about to be legally removed and put into the care system. Now, they will always look for family as the first port of call, but they didn't know about us. So I say the magic words, this is a safeguarding issue. She took my name and number. Within 90 minutes, I had a social worker in my house looking around my home. And I didn't realise the speed of any of this. So for them, they're looking for a foster family at the time, you know, like the speed of it happening. You're looking for family who's able to look after this child. And then my niece's little brother, who wasn't born at this point, but was in the process of being born. So the social worker rings the hospital to check on an update on the pregnancy. And she's on the phone to the hospital and her Apple Watch just says, Tracy manager. And it says, will auntie and uncle take the kids? So if you imagine.
So could you see the what?
She's in my kitchen. She's on the phone like this. And she just goes like this at me. And I'm like, yeah. Because what does take the kids mean?
Yeah.
Tonight?
Yeah.
Next week? 3 weeks? I was like, yeah. And then before I knew it, within the space of the next few days, I've got social workers in my house interviewing us in depth about every aspect of our life. But with nobody has ever explained the process at this point.
Wow.
We just know that there's now going to be what is like a 6-month period for parents to be assessed and goes to court, and they figure out where that child is best placed for the good and safety of the child. But at this point, I don't know what's happening. So I've just got the little one, the 5-year-old. It's the 5th of December at this point. And she stays with us, and there's certain, we take her to what's a contact centre for supervised contact with her parents, and really, really in the dark, really, really unaware of what's going on. Actually, her mum was my biggest source of information. She knew the process, and which really is wrong. It should be separate. I'm technically going through a process of being approved as a foster carer, and parents are separate. You know, I can't support both the parents and the child. But I was trying to help everybody, because we were all in this like storm of not really knowing what's happening and what's going on. And then we didn't see a social worker for 5 weeks. They just like forgot about us.
So they left.
They just like forgot.
Yeah.
You know, we still had arranged contact and things, but we didn't really. We were passed from pillar to post. A lot of people went off with COVID. It was Christmas. It was.
So
it was
it's literally
crackers.
just slipped through. You've slipped through the system.
Yeah. And so the baby's then born a couple of days later, very premature. It's 12 weeks early. And we never expected to have him at all. And we didn't even know if he was related to us at first either. Yeah. So our experience with social services was not positive, let's put it that way. There's a lot I could say, but I don't want to, because I could have put some big complaints in, and I chose not to because I decided that I wanted to help them make things better. So I'm actually really proud that 2 years on, I have worked directly with my local authority to make kinship foster care better for people in my situation. Because when you choose to become a foster carer, it's very different. So you see the adverts, don't you, about giving a child a chance and happy families in a home. And let's be honest, you see the adverts for foster care, and a lot of them have a financial thing attached to the adverts. That isn't that easy. Yeah. And it's not always possible in a kinship care situation.
Can you just explain to the listeners what a kinship is? Yeah.
So a kinship carer, and they don't necessarily have to be, so there's a kinship carer, kinship foster carer.
Yeah, okay.
And a foster carer. So I'll talk about all three.
Yeah.
So a kinship carer is when you care for a child who can no longer live with their birth parents, and you are known to them. You might not necessarily be related. So there are
Okay.
instances of teachers, for example, who have become a kinship, you're classed as a kinship carer. There are a lot of people in the church, for example, who know people in their community who have been known to families and have become kinship carers. You can also be a kinship carer on a private arrangement. For example, Professor Green does a lot of stuff for a charity that I also do some bits with called Kinship, because he was raised by his grandmother.
Okay.
So a lot of people will go and privately arrange to go and live with a grandparent or an auntie or an uncle. You know, sometimes family dynamics mean that they will just head that way, and then it happens. They'll live with an older sibling or whatever. That is still kinship care.
Okay.
Whether you
know
have been removed from your parents or not, there can be a private kinship arrangement. And there's no social services involvement necessarily in that. Sometimes there might be, there might not. Then also you can legally do what's called a special guardianship order. So it's not adoption, but it's where you take over the parental rights of that child.
Right, okay.
And that's called an SGO, or a special guardianship order. So there are many families and kinship carers who will move onto an SGO because what that means is the social services involvement is either stopped or completely lessened, and then you become the parent. You make the decisions for that child. There's a few little things that you can't do as part of that, like you can't leave the country, I think, for more than 3 months, and there's certain things, and you maintain the contact with the birth parents as well for the good of the children, to maintain their contact to their roots. So there's that as well. But then if a child is legally removed by social services, you can become a kinship foster carer. So you train as a foster carer to look after that child, and you do get a small financial support plan as part of that to help raise that child. But this is where kinship care can be very, very unfair because, and this is what I get really passionate about, I feel, and I must state I feel, this is my opinion, that sometimes kinship families are hoodwinked a little bit into taking on a child in a private arrangement so that that legal removal doesn't happen, and therefore they are not entitled to any financial support. They're not entitled to things like educational healthcare plans and mental health support in some cases. So, and I've been very passionate about turning my pain into someone else's power. And I've got involved in kinship carers, and I've heard other people's stories, and it's heartbreaking, you know, that woman saying to me, will auntie and uncle take the kids, is the difference. If I'd have just said at the beginning, we'll look after the kids, but that's different. That would be classed as a private arrangement. So even in just the way that it's worded can have such a massive knock-on effect for a long time. So then there's a foster carer. So you see the adverts, you want to become a foster carer, you want to do this as a job. You will train to be a foster carer. So you will go and do, first of all, a series of mandatory courses. You will then go and do courses in levels, so level 1, level 2, and then there's an extra one for children with additional needs. So you will learn how to help children who've been through adverse childhood experiences as a foster carer. And that process can it can be fast-tracked. It depends when the training is, but it can be fast-tracked, and it can take a long time. And you might decide as a foster carer, as a person, to go into foster care, spend a year doing your training, but then never get a placement. Or you might find that they're desperate for people, so you're fast-tracked through your training, and then you get a child after it. But when you're a kinship carer, I learned in that moment when she said, will auntie and uncle take the children? Actually, we didn't know that we had to do training. So this is the December. We didn't know we had to do training until the following October.
So there was no training?
Nothing.
Wow.
We didn't find out about it till the summer, and then the training was later. And
is that because that got missed?
Yeah, because it's so fast and so traumatic and complicated. And also, social work is very difficult. Like, I wouldn't want to do it. And we've had...
There's a lot. I know.
We've had 9
social workers.
We've had 9 social workers so far. Plus us, I think it's
stressful.
like 18 different professionals that the children have had to retell their story to. It's a lot. And we've had some amazing people, and we've had people who are brought in from agency, from out of area, and the rules are all different everywhere. So that's really hard. So one social worker will tell you one thing because that was right where they previously worked, but actually it doesn't it isn't for where they work now.
Yeah.
And it's been very, very hard. There've also
Yeah.
been a couple of incidences where I would say the wrong things have been said. So, for example, when the baby was coming out of hospital, it was kind of insinuated that we had to take both, otherwise they would put both up for adoption, and they're highly desirable for adoption. Those were the words that and that is hard. And who wants to be put in that situation? But we got 48 hours notice that the baby was coming, and our friends rallied round and brought us prams and a cot and car seats and clothes, and we're not getting any financial support at this point, by the way. It took 6 months to get financial support.
I remember that. I remember you were asking people for anything to help.
But and so my income dropped by 80% in that first, as soon as he came out of hospital, and what they don't tell you as well, and I think this is really important for anybody considering foster care. So if you take a baby, for example, and you are in court proceedings whereby the parents are being assessed, you take that baby every day to see the parents in a contact centre. So if you're trying to work at the same time, or you've got other children, you've got a plan, and a brand newborn baby as well, timing a newborn, getting a newborn baby out, your feeds, the sleeps, and then it makes me feel a bit funny thinking back to it now. And it was incredibly hard and incredibly difficult. And it was, like, we went and got him from the neonatal unit, and they put us in a side room with other parents who were taking their children home at that time. But those other parents have seen birth mum caring for that child from day one, giving him love, hoping he's coming back with her. And then we come in, and I felt like a baby snatcher, and I sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. And really that wasn't great, to put, people bond, when they're on a ward together, people bond, and we were coming in, and it was just, I just sobbed and sobbed, and the nurse was looking at me like, what's wrong with you? And I was just like, I feel, this feels so hard, this is so difficult. And in taking him home that day, I honestly thought he was going to come to us for a couple of weeks. Honestly, that is what I thought. And the court process goes on for 6 months, and then in the June, the court decided that the children should remain in our care, and that's where we've been since.
So when was that?
June 23.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what was your reaction to that in June 23? Were you expecting that decision?
Was I expecting that decision? Yes, I think by that point I was, yes. Yeah.
And did you already, knowing you probably started planning bits in anyway, because you love a good plan. Or did it knock you? Did it shock you?
No, it was expected. And it was we've got to crack on now. And they do, as a kinship foster care, I was then doing more training. They do try and push you down the special guardianship route from the beginning, and we were like, no, we're not kind of ready for that yet, because the baby was very early, and I don't know his long-term health outcomes, so I didn't want to lose access to support and medical intervention that he might need therapeutically further down the line. And the same with the little one as well. She's seen various play therapists, and she's spoken to different counsellors and therapists, and she's done amazingly well, to be fair. She's done incredibly well. She really has, because I'd argue that the process of not living with mum and dad anymore is more traumatic than anything else. And that is to help a child navigate that confusion and its grief. It's like bereavement. It's really hard. And there's a lot of questions that she has, and we can't be the people to answer those questions. It's got to come from the professionals, but we're still waiting for some really important work to help her understand her situation over 2 years later. And that is really, really difficult.
And so what's next steps with everything then?
I think probably to go back a bit, there have been multiple times when I thought I couldn't do this, where I thought I wasn't the right person to do this.
And why did you think that?
It was just so much. And because it's family as well, it brings about so much more complex emotions, the family politics, dynamics. It's hard not on me and my husband and my son and the children. It's hard on such a wider network of people. You know, like the wider family on both sides as well, you know, trying to make sure the children have access to their all of their family story and all of the people involved. But it's really hard, it's really difficult. And behaviour-wise as well, you know, a child's behaviour is always a clue for how they're really feeling, and she has massively struggled with how she's felt, and that has presented as behaviour that would make your toes curl. You know? Behaviour that I didn't know how to navigate, because if you think about it, I've not been trained or taught. I've been thrust in at the deep end. I don't do any courses until like the October, November. And I start learning about the impact of trauma on the brain of a child and how the brain interprets things differently. And it's like learning. I felt like I was learning another language. And I'd muddled through it for the first 10, 11 months. We all had, you know, it's not just me, it's my husband and my son as well. It was very, very hard on my son. Very hard.
So do you want to go tell us about, because talking about challenges of the whole thing, that's what we're talking about, aren't we? What's been challenging about it? You've said that about the family, the emotions of all the family, the trauma that you don't know about in kids' behaviours and brains. And then obviously you've got Blake, who is 11, 12 at the time.
12, yeah, he's like 11, 12. 12, yeah, he was 12 when the children came.
What was his initial reaction? Was he buzzing with a new brother and sister, or was he a bit like, what's going on, Mum?
No, because she's his cousin.
Yeah.
And so they'd always got on really well.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, she is looking for that maternal connection, so she just wants me. And he effectively loses his mum.
Yeah.
Because all of my time and attention in that first 7-week period is on her. Yeah. And then a newborn baby comes. So he's gone from being an only child, having both parents, to now there is a 5-year-old who is massively struggling to navigate this new chapter of her life, quite understandably, and a newborn who came to us at he wasn't even £4, I don't think. He was tiny. And he required medication and round-the-clock care, and I was still working, by the way.
I remember.
So I had many, many clients at the time, and I put a pause on the majority of my clients, apart from 2, who I felt that they were the most hands-off. I didn't need to be, you know, I could do a lot of that work autonomously, and they understood because they were good friends as well. So I kept those 2 on, and then told everybody else I actually said I'm going on maternity leave for 3 weeks. I don't know where I got 3 weeks from in my head. I thought they were going back. I thought they were going back to Mum, and so I was like, yeah, I'll be back in 3 weeks, no problem. Just send me the meeting minutes. It's fine. Yeah, put it all on Asana. I'll pick it up on my return. Absolutely fucked. I was frazzled. So I was still doing a typical Gemma Ray knobhead behaviour of getting up. You know, I'd feed the baby at 3, put him back down in his crib, and then I go back downstairs and log on at 4 o'clock and do an hour's work, because I was trying so desperately to keep my life in order. Yeah. Also, we're not getting any financial support.
That's what I was going to say. So the challenge of the finances, you've got another 2
I've got
people
2 more kids
to look after.
Milk. I didn't realise how much milk cost, and nappies and all of that.
How much does that milk cost?
It's about 11 quid a tub.
Yeah.
And nappies and everything else that came with it. And even just the driving to and from, because that was difficult to maintain my job, because I was driving the children to see their parents every day.
Yeah.
At first, and then that did kind of dwindle off. But that first initial, the first couple of months were very, very hard, trying to juggle everything and make sure I'm getting my son from school and her from school and taking her to see parents and social worker meetings and my own assessments, because we had to be assessed as well, and it was just a lot. It was a heck of a lot.
How did you navigate it then with Blake? What?
With lots
How
of
did it
tears, really. He was just, there were many times when he would be upset at night and say, I just want it to go back the way it was. That was hard. It was really, really hard. But then he would say, things like, but I know that they're all right. And he didn't, he'd heard that threat of, but they're highly desirable if they go up for adoption. He didn't want to see his cousins get adopted at all. He wanted them to stay in the family. And yeah, it was rough. We actually ended up having to sell the motorbikes. So I've talked about Blake being into motocross, and
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so a couple of reasons. He had lost his confidence after breaking his leg, getting back on his bike. He'd bought a bigger bike, and he had lost his confidence a little bit. But also, we weren't able to go as well, because in all of this, one big part I haven't mentioned, my husband's job changed just before the children came. So he started working shifts. So he was working many weekends, he was working many nights. So I was doing a lot of this. I was solo parenting a lot on my own. Or on the weekends when he wasn't working, I was pushing him to go and do motocross with Blake. And we just couldn't sustain it. So we had to sell the bikes, and financially it made sense to do it, because with my income dropping so much, we put so much on a credit card in those first few months. And I'd said to one of the social workers, I think they'd been with us for about 5 or 6 months, and I was like, we genuinely were like, we are going to have to sell our house. We are going to have to downsize, and we're going to have to sell our house. And she was like, I just think you're worrying too much. I was like,
no,
mate,
look at the credit card.
Well, because we'd renovated our house, so we had massive loans from our renovation that we were still paying off, and our outgoings were put my kid in private school. I can't then take him out of private school, can I? He's already had his whole life uprooted. I can't then take him out away from his friends, regardless of how anybody feels about private school. Oh, look at her, woe is me, No,
I get it. It's another upheaval, isn't it? And it's about you're giving your time, your love and your energy into these children that were not expected because they were not in your plans.
No.
So you haven't financially planned to have them. I mean, I know most people don't financially plan for kids really, because we have them, but at this day and age, it costs a lot of money.
Yes.
So what did you do?
Like I said, worked a lot. I worked around the clock. I worked at night. We did eventually get some fostering. It's called the fostering allowance, which is like a nominal amount that you get per child per week. It covers food
Basics.
And stuff. It really does. There's not a lot more it covers. But then you can do training and get what's called a skills payment. So that's where a foster carer will do a lot of that before they go into looking after children. So therefore they're able to earn a full-time wage because they do all the skills training. Now, me being me, you know me, I'll always be honest. I did some of these skills trainings and fed back to the team, to the social workers. Actually, it's not fit for purpose. I said, you've given me all this science about trauma and the impacts of the child's brain, but I haven't got anything that's like a real world thing that's going to help me look after these kids.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can see, where's that camera there? Is it there? I have got, I don't know if you can see, a little green love heart on my hand.
Is that a tattoo?
No, she drew it on me this morning.
Yeah.
Because, as we know, Gemma had a little bit of a confidence crisis and an existential crisis this morning about doing this podcast, and I spent the morning in tears. Yeah,
you wouldn't think so, would you?
I think it's because I'm talking about the kids.
Yeah,
that's what it is. It's so I'm treading on eggshells, and I'd love to be able to just be open and tell the whole story, but it's not my story to tell.
Yeah.
And I have to be considerate to all the family members that are involved in this. So I'd said to her last night, I'm really sorry I might be a bit snappy. I'm feeling a bit stressed and a bit anxious about the podcast tomorrow. So bless her. She gets this.
She's 7 now, isn't
She's 7 now. She gets this teddy. And she goes, give me the teddy. And she gets it and she cuddles it. She goes, I'm just putting my love in this teddy. I'm like, oh. And then she handed it me. She's like, right, hug the teddy, close your eyes. I was like, right. She's like, I want you to imagine that your podcast goes really well. You're dead happy. And I burst into tears. I'm sobbing.
So cute.
I'm sobbing. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And then when she'd finished, I said, you need to tell your teacher, Miss Newsham, shout out to Miss Newsham. She is the best and most amazing teacher ever. You need to tell her tomorrow, thank you so much for teaching you that in your relaxed kids classes. She went, she didn't teach me that. I just know how to manage emotions, duh. Which actually is a testament to how far she's come.
It's amazing. You're being coached by a 7-year-old.
I am being coached by a 7-year-old. But this heart on the hand thing is something that actually another foster carer gave me. So I found a lot of comfort in meeting other mainstream foster carers who've been doing this for donkey's years. They are the actual angels. The people who choose to do this as a job, my hats off to you. I just think you're the most incredible people to walk this planet. You are actual angels, like if you choose to do it. Yeah. So I've met some incredible foster carers, incredible kinship carers and grandparents, aunties, uncles who've given me real world advice and tips that have helped me. And this was one of them. So a child who's experienced adverse childhood experiences is often looking for connection. And sometimes they will ask for connection in the most unkind of ways because it doesn't matter how they get that connection, they just want it. Yeah. And sometimes the only way they know how is to act in what we would deem as adults.
Tantrum.
Violence. You know, there's lots I could go into. And it's about maintaining connection at all times. So that's something that I've been working on for a long time with her. So one of the things we do, if she's feeling a bit wobbly going to school, we'll play the fill up game. So we fill up with love. So we'll hug each other and we'll each take it in turns. Right, I'm at your ankles, now I'm at your legs, I'm at your knees. And when she does this to me, and we go all the way to our head, right, and she does this to me, she goes, I'm at your bum, I'm still at your bum, I'm at your big giat, because that's what kids call a bum now, apparently. I'm still at your bum, it's massive. And then she does the same for my boobs, of course. And then we do all the way to the top of our head and a little bit extra because everyone loves a little bit extra. And that love is supposed to last us for the whole day.
That's gorgeous.
And then we draw hearts on our hands so that if I feel like I need her love, I touch my heart and she's got one on her hand that I've drawn on her. So she will touch hers.
It seems like NLP techniques,
no idea, but it bloody works. It's brilliant.
I love the fact that it's green because green's the colour for the heart chakra.
It's only because it was the only Sharpie that we had. Everything else was a dry white marker and I thought I might wash it off and she's going to want to see it as soon as I get home. So it had to be a Sharpie.
And you can show her this episode and say that, look, you've used it to help you through the podcast.
I know, but that's an example of I needed some real world stuff that was going to help me. So I've been really proud to work with the trainers who are amazing. We've had some experiences with social workers that have been great. We've also had some people who have been genuinely life-changing in this journey. And the people who do the training are wonderful. And so I've been really proud to help them develop do it better, really, so that techniques. Especially for kinship carers who are thrust into this. So I'm really proud that my local authority now has a specific training program for kinship carers.
Amazing.
And it's run quite regularly because we make up more than mainstream foster carers. There's more of us than mainstream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It baffles me how that's never really been looked at. Do you know what I mean? Yet there's a big thing with foster carers, but the kinship, I didn't know what kinship was until you told me. And it's because it does happen more, so you're going to go towards someone in your family.
Well, it's important for the child, if you imagine you are 5 years old, you're not going home with mum and dad tonight, you're going to go with this couple who you do not know, they're strangers, stay in a room that one of our social workers came around last week and she was telling us about some training that she did, and they did just that. They got the adults in the room and then all of a sudden someone said, right, get up. You're going out there. You're not allowed to take anything with you. Can't see your pets again. And they put them in the same situation as children who go into care. And she said it just really helped me. If I felt like that in a training exercise as an adult, it makes you empathise with what a child goes through.
Yeah. And these beautiful little angels that have been brought into the world, so pure. and not knowing where I think they just need love, don't they? But it's not just about the love, it's about the skills to help
But it's very
them.
difficult to give love when the outward presenting behaviour is so appalling at times. That has been the biggest challenge. And you know, there have been times when I have what we have this thing called flip your lid. So we talk about the brain. So I don't know where it's right. So this is your brain stem, and this is where all your decisions come from. This is your prefrontal cortex. And we say, like, when we flip our lid, that's when we know. And what do we need to do to bring it back down? So that's one of the things sometimes. And if I'm kicking off, sometimes she will go like this. I'm like, okay, I need to calm
my
down.
Kids about that, actually,
it's good. It's really, really good. But I do it to her too, you know.
Yeah, it's a good reminder.
It's a good reminder. And yeah, there have been times, being genuinely honest, there have been times when I have been like, I don't need to do this.
Yeah.
This is my husband's family. It's not mine. This is affected. I'm lucky if I get 5 minutes with my teenage son, the boy I birthed. I am lucky if I get 5 minutes a day with him. I don't have to do this anymore. And there were times where I was like, I'll just go back to my decent job. I'll buy a house for me and Blake. I can't do this anymore. I just can't do it.
So what keeps you doing it? What is it?
Now, it's different. If you'd have asked me a year ago, I didn't want to give up. I wanted to know that I had done everything I possibly could to make it work. And the last choice was going to be completely giving up work, but that would have put us in a really big financial stressful position. So I found out about a course called NVR, Non-Violent Resistance, or New Vision for Relationships. And I'm going to talk about this in the next episode because it completely changed our lives. Yeah. And on the first session, they asked us what our intentions were for the course. And I said, I just want to love her. Because I didn't at the time. And that's a really hard thing to admit and say.
It's very vulnerable, but it's very honest because you can't force love.
But also, you know, I have only ever had one child that I have given birth to, only ever had one kid. So you've got 2 children, right? I didn't understand the concept of being able to love 2 kids at once. And I think that was part of mine and Sean's fear about having another one. We love Blake so much. How can we possibly love another kid as much as we love him? And Sean was so worried about ruining the dynamic that we had with Blake, and that was his driving force and decision. I just want to give everything I've got to this one kid, because how can I possibly split myself anymore? So I'm just going to give it to this one kid. But of course, the universe took a massive shit on our heads and changed all of that for the better. I can say that now. So I think that my bond with the baby came a lot quicker.
Yeah, because it was more naturally.
It's a baby.
He came from pure, just born, wasn't he?
Yeah, and so there was that element of a huge sense of guilt. I felt so ashamed that I felt different about her. Also, I was adopted by my stepdad, so it unearthed a real fear in me. Like, if I can feel like this, do my parents feel like this about me? And that was hard. My family in particular have found this whole scenario very difficult to navigate. They didn't know what to do for the best. They watched me go from this really positive, fun, happy person to just broken, and they didn't know what to do. And that was difficult. So I was determined, and I found out about this course. I found out about it just before Christmas, and it was to start like in the January time.
So when was this? Not Christmas,
last year.
2024?
So 2024. Yeah, so Christmas 23.
23, you're okay. And then took
was
you into...
hard. Was really hard. Threats of violence with knives and things, and just, that you wouldn't expect from someone so young. And I was just like, I can't do this. I just can't do this anymore. And it was hard for Blake seeing us both change and you know, I can look back now. There's a concept called compassion fatigue, which is when you're a carer and the care of someone else is when you have compassion for what they've been through, what they're going through, but at a detriment to yourself. So my periods stopped, my hair was falling out. I don't really want to talk about my weight anymore because it's boring, but I gained 4 stone in a year because I ate all of my feelings, good and bad. That was how I coped. But again, that was I found that really hard.
Yeah.
Like, okay, me and other people involved in this situation are coping with our stress in ways where actually it's the same thing, right? I just choose food that's legal and they choose something else.
Yeah.
What makes us different? I found that really hard.
Yeah.
So actually we're both doing the same thing, but I'm all right to have your kids. Like that concept was really, like, it just
hard to
felt
get
like
your head
such
round.
a failure. Like I thought I'd handled this. I thought I'd fix this in myself. I have spent thousands on coaching on disordered eating and sorting my shit out. Why am I at this place again? So when parents are letting children down and I'm annoyed about that, I have to go back and go, they're at that place again because they're going through the hardest part of their life. And it is really hard to hold both frustration, anger, and compassion and empathy at the same time for people, as well as beating yourself up mentally because you're not doing the best thing that you can do. So I'd pinned all my hopes on this course and threw myself into it. And it did. It changed everything. And then I was very, very lucky to be invited back 6 months later as a parent mentor. So I did the course again, which was great for me as a refresher.
Yeah.
And it's funny because when you do the course, and I'll talk about this in more depth, but one of the first sessions is they give you Post-it notes and you write all the behaviour that you don't want to tolerate in your house anymore.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, right. Spitting, swearing, all this, lots of other things that I don't need to go into. And honestly, I started and I was like, and I nearly filled a goddamn Post-it note pad, and we had to put them on this board. Yeah. And I remember the trainer stepping back, and she just looked at me and she went, "You're going through a lot, aren't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I really am." Now, what was really cool was by the second time I did this and we did I'm joining in as a parent mentor. So this is 10 months after I've done the initial course, and we get to do the exercise again. And I'm not just thinking about her, I'm thinking about Blake and the little one as well, who's a toddler by this point. And I'm trying to think of things, of behaviour that I don't want to tolerate anymore. And I was like, it's not much really. And then I thought, it's my own fucking behaviour, actually, that needs addressing on this part of the course. It's my own need for trying to control. It's my own stress management, actually, that is all, this is the problem now as a parent. And that, even though that was hard to admit, it was beautiful at the same time to kind of think, wow, we have gone through so much and fixed, I suppose, and improved so much. This is just incredible. This is amazing.
Look how far you've come in that 10 months from doing that course. And again, that the whole thing about knowledge, because we've got, as human beings, we've got that love within us and seeing family and friends and wanting to help. But when you've got someone coming at you because they've been through a lot of traumatic experiences and it's a little child and you don't know how to handle it and understand them, and you've got your own shit going on, it's like,
well, we're all human beings at the end of the day, and we all have this fight, flight, freeze response. And it doesn't matter whether my brain, perceiving a threat from a 5-year-old or a 50-year-old grown man, it's the same. It's the same response. And I think when you are stuck in so much stress, overwhelm, uncertainty, just constant feeling of guilt, constant confusion, a bit of hopelessness, that's what it was. It was hopelessness. I couldn't see a way for this future to be amazing with us all.
Because you're constantly living in the stress, just keeping yourself alive and keeping yourself safe, aren't you? But for you to look at that and look at the first time that you did the course to the 10 months later and how much impact that's had, it's massive, isn't it?
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And it is, I would say it is exhausting. So with the little girl in particular, I have to be 20 steps ahead all the time. For example, we're filming and recording the day after Mother's Day. It was Mother's Day yesterday. So I was expecting it to be an incredibly triggering day, leaving her very dysregulated. So being mindful of that, actually I briefed Sean and my son, listen, this is the hardest day of the year for this little girl, right? Everybody has got to show her compassion and empathy. Or we have this acronym PACE, playfulness, acceptance, curiosity, empathy. We have to approach her with all of those. And so that was good because my husband had been on night shift, so he was a bit grumpy. And, you know, she what did she say to him? She told him to shut up like this. And he immediately goes to react. And I just looked at him and he was like, right, yeah, okay. So that, but it is exhausting, you know, having to think about
being constantly aware of,
of the emotions. And, but it was great. You know, she was actually, because we were all having loads of fun all day. And I think me understanding that she might feel this way puts me in a completely different energy. I'm playful, I'm accepting, I'm curious, I'm empathetic. So I'm fun to be around. I'm not being a grump. I'm not trying to be the police officer of the family. I'm being accepting, and it worked out really well.
Yeah.
But it also works for Blake too, you know, navigating teenage years at the moment. Oh my God. That's hard work.
Isn't it?
Even the toddler, you know, we're going through the terrible twos sometimes, and there are certain elements of this new way of parenting that massively impacts him in a positive way. It's great.
Yeah.
But it is also hard to accept that the way that I've parented all these years is now different. It's really hard to unlearn that. And I've had to parent myself, I think, more than anything. But
well, I can't wait till are you going to do like is it the next episode?
Yes.
On NVR?
Yeah.
Say what it is again.
Non-violent resistance, but the new name for it is New Vision for Relationships.
That sounds
much better.
It does. So another question I've got for you. I don't know before we finish, because I'm not sure how long it's your podcast. I can keep asking you questions. What has Gemma learned about herself over the last 2.5 years?
I keep saying that she holds up a mirror for me, and she shows me the parts of myself that are positive and negative. She's allowed me to work on things that have plagued me for a long time. Having the children has forced me to put work second. I now know I use work as an escape. You know, so that again is another thing. I've used food in an addictive capacity. I've also used work in an addictive capacity, and stress in an addictive capacity, because my brain is comfortable there. So I'm still completely dedicated to my job. I was writing emails at 11 o'clock last night, you know, and I was up at 6 o'clock working this morning. I don't think I'm ever going to change that part of me, but that's because I'm using my time wisely so I can spend more time with the children when they're awake and when they're doing things. So, yeah, I think stress has been huge. And I think I'm able to identify now when I'm in the thick of it and how to get out of it.
Yeah.
I am very proud that I identified early last year when I started the course, when I famously said, I hate my life. I just really hate my life. And as soon as the words left my mouth, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I was like, right, dickhead, we need to sort this out then, because you are the only one. You're the only one in control of your life. And that's when I kind of thought, right, do I split up with my husband? Because I didn't want to put him in that position where he would have to make a choice between me and the kids.
Yeah.
Because that would affect his mum and dad and seeing the children. Yeah. So I was like, I'll just leave him. I'll buy another house. I'll take my kid. We'll go and live near school. It'll be fine. I'll make it work. But that was massively drastic, and there were things that I needed to address before that point. So I overhauled my exercise, joined the most awesome ladies only fitness place. I worked for gyms as well, started working out in my lunch hour at work, sorted my food out.
Mental health walks, your mental health.
I do my silly little walks, my silly little mental health. Sometimes I really can't be arsed, but I know that they're good for me. I've worked with a coach this whole time who's kept me accountable and helped me believe in myself when I don't. You know, she's believed in me when I haven't. And I'm really proud of the way that I have had to drag myself out of the stress.
Yeah.
But it's worked. And, you know, I found a story that I'd recorded this time last year, the other day, and I sent it to my coach. I'm like, look at this. And it's me going, isn't being an adult bullshit? I've just realised if I want to be that future version of myself that's an athlete, I'm going to have to go to the gym and lift heavy things, and I'm going to have to eat protein. And if I want to stop being a slob and my house looking like a hoarder's heaven, then I'm going to have to clean my kitchen every night. I'm going to have to declutter. And it was funny, like watching it back, because I've done all of that. I'm constantly thinking about that future version of me. And what's that?
Will thank you for.
Yeah, what's that phrase?
Yeah.
Fake it till you make it. Like I have this constant phrase at work where I take the piss, where somebody asked me the other day, do you want a biscuit? It's like, no, I'm an athlete. I take creatine. That's like my standard piss take response. But there's method in my madness.
Yeah.
Like, I wanna be fit. I wanna be here for a long time, because actually when the baby, who's now 2, when he is my age,
how old is it?
I'm going to be 84.
And you want to be the fittest 84-year-old on the planet?
That terrifies me,
boy.
that I'm not going to be here for the kids. Terrifies me. So I've got to manage my stress. So they have been the best lesson in that. I would say that my marriage is stronger than it's ever been. We've had to learn to communicate better. Yeah. We've had to be more honest with ourselves. I'd argue this has been hard. I know it's all fallen onto me. But a lot of this has been a lot harder on my husband, because it's his family and it's hard. It's really, really hard on him. I can detach from it. I can be the bolshy bitch with social services, and I can fight for the kids and be their advocate without worrying about the implications of it, because I'm a bit removed.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But yeah, I never thought I'd get to the point where I would say, yeah, it's been worth it. But it has.
That's so lovely. And they always say, don't they, when it's like the lotus flower, it grows in shit, doesn't it? It grows in mud. When you see these lotus flowers.
I was just about to lose it and cry, so thank you for that.
I knew how to make that. No, cry. I give you tissue.
I know, 3, yeah. So we are lotus flowers growing in shit.
It's like when you see the way the lotus flower grows, it grows in soil and it's very dirty, and it grows into a beautiful flower. And I truly do believe that those kids were sent to you because for everyone to learn from it and to get the best out of it. For sure. I'm dead proud of you as a friend.
Thank you very much.
And I know how much of you're a human design manifesting generator. You can manage a lot of things a lot of the time, but seeing you so overwhelmed wasn't nice to see, but lovely to see that you are flourishing again now and that you started this podcast again.
Thank you. And thank you for helping me. And if anybody wants to learn more about kinship care, you can Google the Kinship charity as well.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.